In this video, we have a special treat as Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert team up to dismantle Trump's latest disastrous speech. From his terrible speeches to his shameless claims, we've got it all covered. Let's dive right in.
Donald Trump had quite the busy weekend because Friday was his 78th birthday, and he's a little sensitive about aging. In fact, last week, Trump said this birthday was the one he wanted to ignore. Are you one? Are you two? And we don't have time for this. You're just old. You're old, okay?
Colbert nails it. Trump's sensitive attitude to his age adds still another layer to his brittle ego. While he's busy trying to ignore his birthday, he can't ignore the fact that he's a convicted felon. His lies are clear, just as his frantic attempts to seem relevant and young. It's almost as if he thinks ignoring reality will make it disappear. Newsflash, time catches up with everyone, even you.
Trump traveled to Detroit this weekend for the launch of his Black Americans for Trump coalition. All 15 Black Americans who support Trump were there to see.
Trump's attempt to gain support from the Black community is as transparent as it is insulting. The fact that his Black Americans for Trump coalition could hardly gather a varied audience speaks volumes.
Martin Luther Burger King in person, and Trump started the day with an event at a predominantly black church, which somehow turned into a predominantly white church for this occasion.
His rhetoric and policies have regularly excluded people of color. Now, he is courting them for votes. It is a sobering reminder of how disconnected he is with the communities he claims to support when he turns a largely black church into a mostly white one for his event. It's all only a front, a badly done effort at seeming inclusive.
Trump celebrated in Florida at a fundraiser that featured this towering cake, which looks delicious and looks like it stormed the Capitol on January 6th.
Only Trump could make his birthday another self-congratulating rally. His claim about not needing votes is idiotic and dangerous. Encouraging voter apathy is a direct attack on democracy. He's essentially saying that his victory is inevitable, a delusion that's been debunked time and again. The man's narcissism is unbounded, and his contempt of the democratic process is as evident as ever.
There were some people of color in attendance, including rappers I Swear Vezzo and Peasy, who are, that is quite a trio right there. I mean, it's Please Don't Run DMC.
Kimmel's joke hits hard, pointing out the ridiculousness of Trump trying to appeal to the black community by associating with rappers known for their controversial lyrics and connections to gang culture. Trump, who has regularly pushed policies that damage communities of color, is shockingly ironic in wanting to hang around people who support the very problems he says he is tough on. This is not only hypocritical, it's a desperate attempt to seem relevant and in touch, while in fact, he is utterly out of step with the needs and values of these communities, without any real knowledge or respect for the people he's trying to win over. Trump's classic case of using culture for political advantage is one of exploitation.
Trump's hairstyle stays forever young. You can't say the same about the brain right below it. We got more proof of that this weekend when he tried to shame Joe Biden into taking the cognitive test.
I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Dr. Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson?
I love Ronnie Johnson.
Trump's cognitive test claim is yet another attempt to divert attention from his own deteriorating mental state. He can't even get the name of his own doctor right. It's Ronnie Jackson, not Johnson. This isn't just a slip of the tongue. It's a glaring sign of his own cognitive decline. Trump's own mistakes indicate how disconnected he is with reality, even as he tries to present Biden as inept. Ironically, the one most in need of an assessment is the person who questions others' mental fitness all the time.
So then Malcolm XXL showed up at another event where they really went all out for his entrance.
You have to wonder if Donald Trump is indestructible.
Please welcome the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J.
Are you ready to rock back and forth?
Trump's constant craving for adulation and dramatic entrances is a desperate attempt to distract from his numerous failings and legal troubles. It's as if he's attempting to persuade himself and his dwindling supporters that he is still relevant and powerful. But no amount of fanfare can cover the reality of his divisive policies. Trump chooses theater instead of addressing the actual problems confronting America, hoping that the overwhelming applause would silence the voices of reason and responsibility.
Trump's team tried to defend the remarks, saying the former president wasn't calling the whole city horrible, just crime in the city, with one aide saying he was directly referring to crime in Milwaukee. Now, he does have a point. Milwaukee's become so soft on crime that this July, their convention center is hosting a convicted felon.
Blaming crime in Milwaukee while failing to address his own criminal behavior is peak hypocrisy. Although Trump's deflection strategies are not new, they are becoming outdated. Desperate attempts by his team to reinterpret his words cannot conceal the truth. He is the actual issue. Having a convicted criminal stay at their convention center is the ideal metaphor for Trump's whole career. Surrounded with dishonesty and scandal, his critique of Milwaukee is only another attempt to deflect his own legal problems.
And of course, no Trump speech would be complete without an extended riff on a subject that's always at the very top of the list of issues voters care about most.
Today you read where they don't want to have any water in your dishwasher, so your dishwasher won't work, and they think that's good. So what you do is you keep having it go on and on and on. The electric bill is 10 times more than the water. And these are areas that have so much water, they don't know what to do with it. They're flooding.
Not only is this nonsense, when do you think was the last time Trump loaded a dishwasher? Maybe never?
You ever go into a new home where you're in the shower where the water doesn't come out of the shower? Huh? They put a restrictor on. I took all the restrictors off. I took them off.
What a rebel, what a riot. I mean, this man has done more for water pressure than any president in history.
I've had the experience. I take a shower, I want that beautiful head of hair to be nice and wet. Lathered. I want it to be lathered beautifully. And I get the best stuff you can buy and I dump it all over. And then I turn on the water and the damn water drips out. I can't get the stuff out of my hair. It's a horrible thing.
Yeah, it does sound horrible.
Trump's tirade on showers and dishwashers is not only out of date, but also pointless. His fixation on mundane issues reveals his alienation from the actual challenges confronting Americans.
Just listening to you describe it, I almost threw up, but I hope he has good water pressure in the showers at Rikers Island, because he is not going to like that.
The last time Trump really addressed these domestic chores was when? Usually never. His attention on such small problems emphasizes his incapacity to handle more important concerns, including healthcare, education, and economic disparity. Though it's a sad attempt to seem relevant, it only drives him further apart from the typical American.
At the same event in Detroit, Trump played some of his greatest hits, like comparing himself to a notorious gangster, like that's a good thing.
I got indicted more than the legendary Alphonse Capone. Has anyone heard of Alphonse Capone? Scarface. He was so mean that if he had dinner with a person and if he didn't like him, he would kill the person. They would never find him again. Like Mike Lindell, he wouldn't like Mike. But you know why? He'd say, those ads, they are driving me crazy. Let's get rid of this guy. Al Capone would take Mike out in 2 minutes. You'd never be found. He'd be buried under the World Trade Center.
Trump's flimsy allusion to Al Capone and the World Trade Center is not only bad taste, but also quite nasty. Lightening one of America's worst tragedies reveals a total lack of respect for the victims and their families. This kind of rhetoric reminds us sharply of Trump's cruelty and his taste for using shock value to draw attention. Rather than seriousness, he chooses flimsy comments that minimize important problems. This kind of behavior shows his lack of fit for any kind of leadership. It is odd and unsettling for Trump to be evaluating himself against Al Capone. He seems pleased about being charged more than one of the most infamous offenders in past times. This is a sign of his obvious disrespect of the law. not a badge of honor. His inability to understand the weight of his activities is shown by his jokes about such a major concern. This is concerning for someone who wants to lead the nation, since he seems to embrace criminal activity instead of separating himself from it.
And then there's me farting on the whole family. You were a great dad, but you smell, with smell lines. Excellent, Jane.
Kimmel's comedy offers a counterpoint to the current grave concerns. His joke on Trump's farting is a lighthearted jab at Trump's often wild and immature actions. It reminds us that the underlying problems are no joke, even if we can find fun in the ridiculousness. Trump's actions have actual repercussions. Thus, it's crucial to hold him responsible, even while his public image is ridiculous.
Now, I have one more clip to show you from the Detroit event, but first a warning. The following contains graphic descriptions of Donald Trump showering.
I take a shower, I want that beautiful head of hair to be nice and wet. Lather.
I take very normal, very regular showers.
Wrapping up Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert's hilarious takedown, we have our own U.S. newscaster special of exposing Trump for you to watch. Or if you want another comedic breakdown, click the top right corner to watch Jimmy Kimmel destroy Donald and Melania Trump. Make sure to like and subscribe if you love democracy. Hope you enjoy.
This is a person who was elected president of the United States and who has a chance of being elected again. That should cause all of us to just to step back and think for a minute. This is not normal, and this is not acceptable or safe for the country.
Paul Ryan needs to talk about, there is a reason why I'm not the Speaker of the House anymore. My views are being pushed out of the party. We are not a big tent party right now because Donald Trump expects Republicans in any position of power, whether you're the House Speaker, whether you're a Senate Republican, to act as his legal and political shield. That is why Donald Trump is going to the Hill today.
We have never had a former president or a presidential candidate who refuses to accept the peaceful transfer of power, who refuses to say that he will abide by the Constitution, who's been indicted and impeached for trying to block the peaceful transfer of power. That is something that is absolutely fundamental to our democracy. It's one of the things that's made our democracy work for over 250 years. The idea.
Let's the most charitable interpretation of what Bill Barr is saying here, right, is something like the president of the United States on a regular basis would blow off steam. I think that was his phrase, right? Yeah, he would get mad. Right. And he would say things around the table like, let's imagine saying something like, not, I want to have this leaker found and executed. But let's imagine he's just blowing off steam. He's saying, you know, if we could find that leaker, I'd like to take him out of the back of the White House on the South Lawn and have him shot. And let's say he wasn't being serious. Let's just say he was blowing off steam, right?
And I'm not blaming this all on him, but he has certainly empowered the kind of populism you're talking about, smash mouth, clicks, cable hits on Fox, et cetera, where you're a board member, by the way. He has popularized that. He has empowered that. We saw it last week. So how can this be achieved even within the Republican Party before you even get to the Democrats?
The simple fact that the former president continues to lie about the last election, that he did whatever he could on that day to block the peaceful transfer of power, is absolutely unprecedented in all of our history.
As a matter of presidential temperament, is that the guy you want to have behind as the commander-in-chief, sitting in the Oval Office, a guy who, when he's frustrated, when he's blowing off steam, again to use Barr's formulation, is someone whose way in which he exercises his frustration is to casually talk about having people who work for him shot, executed in some way. Well, I don't know if that's by hanging or by a guillotine or by the firing squad.
A couple things. He's fading fast. He's a proven loser. He cost us the House in 18. He cost us the White House in 20. He cost us the Senate again and again. And I think we all know that. And I think we're moving past Trump. I really think that's the case. I can't imagine him getting the nomination, frankly. And I don't mean this because I don't want him to get the nomination. I just don't think he will as an analytical point. The thing that I take solace in with all the machinations you saw last week, most of that wasn't personal. Most of that was around fiscal responsibility. Most of that was about a concern about spending, inflation, and debt.
We've all seen Trump lie endlessly about the results of the 2020 election at his rallies and, of course, on Fox News, where he's given endless oxygen to spew such disinformation. But what about across the stage from the man who he lost to, regarding the free and fair election that several of his very own appointed judges tossed any and every case that dared to claim that it was stolen? Because this will lay bare the blatant disparity between both.
But let's put this all in context, because you are right. When Donald Trump got the riot going on January 6th, as Lindsey Graham and as Kevin McCarthy said, he was responsible for these riots. Not only did he not call off the attackers when they were saying hang Mike Pence, not only did he tell staffers, according to their testimony, that maybe Mike Pence deserved hanging, he put out a tweet at a perilous time, which put Mike Pence in even more danger. He decided to do that.
You guys know this. Tomorrow is former President Trump's 78th birthday. Don't wish him well all at the same time. Yeah, down at Mar-a-Lago, they're planning a big party with candy ankle monitors and a bouncy jailhouse.
Until now, no American president had ever faced a criminal trial. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment for retaining and concealing classified documents. No American president had ever faced a federal indictment or a state indictment for trying to overturn an election or been named an unindicted co-conspirator in 2 other states for the same crime.
Apparently, when the chef at Mar-a-Lago asked what kind of cake he wanted, Trump said, "The kind with the file baked into it." I'm getting out of here, boys.
Your point is well taken. It is definitely well documented that there are really scary tendencies on the part of this former president. But even if anybody said something like that in jest or to blow off steam, in any situation,
no American president ever faced hundreds of millions of dollars in judgments for business fraud, defamation, and sexual abuse. Until now, no American presidential race had been more defined by what's happening in courtrooms than what's happening on the campaign trail. Until now. The scale of the abnormality is so staggering that it can actually become numbing. It's all too easy to fall into reflexive habits, to treat this as a normal campaign.
That's right, tomorrow is Trump's birthday, and to celebrate, he made a special video.
Oh, really?
Check this out.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to one of the greatest, smartest, totally innocent, good-looking people I have ever known. Happy birthday to me.
if it happened on the front porch of your house or if you said it on the show, it would be off-putting. It would be striking. People would think something was wrong with you.
For a president to say it in the Oval Office, talking about it, and for a guy who talks about executing political opponents and generals, it is relevant. It is to be taken literally.
Where both sides embrace the rule of law, where both sides are dedicated to a debate based on facts and the peaceful transfer of power. But that is not what's happening this election year. Those bedrock tenets of our democracy are being tested in a way we haven't seen since the Civil War. It's a test for the candidates, for those of us in the media, and for all of us as citizens.
Yeah, I think there's something important. They need to interject new information. So people know Trump was convicted of a felony. It's good. It's fair to hit him. It's totally fair. What they don't know is 26 women have credibly accused Trump of sexual improprieties with them. 26.
Things just went from bad to worse for Trump attorney James Troupis, who was just indicted last week as part of the Wisconsin indictment for his role in the 2020 fake elector scheme.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court temporarily suspended him from his position on the committee overseeing judicial conduct. Now, it is an absolute travesty that he was on this. And it's also worth noting, by the way,
And you know what Trump meetings are like. He's electric.
Hey, some of the words that were used, you heard Andrew, meandering, all over the map, doesn't know what he's talking about, could not keep a straight thought.
So there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted?
Now, how many jurors were there that found him? So the tendency is, well, we know that, it was this. No. You did not know that. You also did not, we know the Supreme Court had a Dobbs decision. What the public doesn't know is Trump bragged on it. He says, I was the one that appointed them.
you said for his part in the fake elector scheme as if somehow he was the only lawyer involved in the fake elector schemes. I mean, Jim Troupis is part of a proud group that includes the likes of Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, right? I mean, like think about the pantheon here that we are talking about with Mr. Troupis.
I mean, it seemed like there had been a trend of our American oligarchs getting behind Donald Trump because he likes to make a deal and everything's transactional and quid pro quo. But to get in a room with him and to listen to him speak is to see how deranged and outlandish his speculations are right now, in addition to everything else that he, stands for.
Well, if I was a gambler, actually I am a gambler. Yeah. I'd take even money if Trump doesn't show up. Okay, I just think...
You don't think Trump's coming next week?
I don't know, but if I was, I think he's going to wake up and say and decide. He just like he said he was going to testify in his defense of his trial. He put on the defense. Let him show up. I wouldn't be shocked, but I certainly would not be surprised. If you gave me even money, I'd say he's a no-show. He'll just get up in the morning and say, I'm just not going to do it.
After it was reported last week that the man seen rambling about shark attacks and cancer-inducing wind turbines didn't leave a room full of CEOs excited about the possibility of him becoming president. Again, reactions as expected poured in from across the media landscape.
Reportedly baffled by the former president's incoherence during the private meeting.
There were sighs of despair heard on Morning Joe.
That's right, Trump was found guilty. They were going to put him in an orange jumpsuit, but it felt redundant. The big question now is whether Trump will get jail time or house arrest. If he's sentenced to jail, Melania will be inside the courtroom chanting, 4 more years, 4 more.
But if the debate goes off, and if the president does well, and if he interjects just new information into the bloodstream, you're going to say that it's worth it. Now, if the debate goes off and he doesn't do well, then you're going to say it's a mistake. But I was happy.
And the meeting was asked about why he had chosen 20%. And he said, well, it's a round number. Had a number of CEOs shaking their head, given that 1% of the total tax burden on the country is actually a huge number in terms of what is needed to support the revenue for this country.
Again, House Republicans have showed us their priorities, protecting Donald Trump and throwing red meat to their base. On Friday, the House narrowly passed a defense bill loaded with unrelated culture war issues targeting abortion access, treatment for trans troops, and efforts to combat climate change. Only 3 Republicans voted against all that nonsense. It has absolutely no chance of passing the U.S. Senate.
I'm happy that they're doing it. It's unusual. It's June. You don't start them till September. But the world is not the same as it used to be. But you just got to adapt to it. But I'm glad they're doing it. And I think he's going to, I think they're going to have good prep. They have good people prepping the president. But I'm still skeptical that Trump shows up.
I will say I was surprised. I spoke to a number of CEOs who I would say walked into the meeting being Trump supporter-ish or thinking that they might be leaning that direction, who said that he was remarkably meandering, could not keep a straight thought, was all over the map, and that they, which may be not surprising, but
it is really sad that the Republican majority has decided to use the annual defense authorization bill as sort of a vehicle for their favorite pet causes, knowing cynically that, as you indicated, it's not going to pass the firewall in the Senate.
Was interesting to me because these were people who I think might have been actually predisposed to him and actually walked out of the room less predisposed to him, actually predisposed to thinking this is not necessarily, as one person said, this may not be any different or better than a Biden thought if you're thinking that way.
And it's not going to be signed into law by President Biden, but that hasn't stopped them. And it is a sad day because in the past, we had strong bipartisan coalitions to protect the national security and national defense and not use it as some kind of punching bag.
Are we thinking of the same sociopath turned convicted felon? Because him leaving a room in disarray is about as surprising as this being the crowd that he drew at an all-black church.
Andrew, more takeaways from Trump's meeting with business leaders. What was the reception like?
Well, it was interesting. I spoke to a number of the CEOs who were at that meeting yesterday, a number of whom frankly, had been predisposed to President Trump, in fact, former President Trump.
You showed a picture of Judge Cannon in Florida. That's what goes wrong when you put MAGA Republicans on a bench with no experience. She's willing to thwart justice for a partisan political purpose to protect Trump. We need to do what Mitch McConnell did in putting a Supreme Court justice on the Supreme Court, ignoring every past statement and just using raw power to make sure that his president's appointments got confirmed. Well, we need to do the same.
All right. Trump will be sentenced on July 11th, and his lawyers told him you should get your affairs in order. Trump was like, that's what got me in trouble in the first place. And speaking of his sentence, sentencing, in a new interview with Fox and Friends, Trump said that he would be okay with either going to jail or being under house arrest. Yeah, which makes sense, because if Trump goes to jail, all his friends will be in there too.
Hey, Steve, Peter, how you guys doing? You want to cut the garlic with a razor?
And they walked away from that meeting, I think, a bit disheartened, a bit questioning, I don't want to say his mental fitness, but questioning just how meandering, how in some cases one said to me he could not keep a thought straight. He would go in one direction and then he'd go in another direction.
We should be recommending you to be prosecuted. We should be writing a criminal referral because you should be prosecuted for crimes against humanity. You belong in prison, Dr. Fauci.
In the Trump era, in the Republican Party, this is what it's like to be the nation's most esteemed public health official, the nation's top subject matter expert on infectious disease.
And it must be because of MIT, my relationship to MIT. Very smart. He goes, I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark.
Dr. Anthony Fauci was the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease for 38 years. He has a new book that's out tomorrow. It's called On Call, A Doctor's Journey in Public Service. And in that book, he says that in the, quote, early days of the HIV/AIDS pandemic, the aggressive hate mail that he got was, quote, homophobically motivated, criticizing me for wasting time trying to save mostly gay men who, quote, brought this all on themselves by their supposedly aberrant behavior.
He appeared on Jen Psaki's show over the weekend, in which the subject matter of Trump's mental acuity was touched on, where Raskin cited his most recent rallies as a clear indicator that he can't seem to string together a cohesive thought, but also how Trump and his family consistently view the high office as a money-making scheme.
With Ebola, he says, the hate mail seemed to be related to the perception by white supremacist types that I favored black Africans over the health of our country. So that's the kind of hate mail he got in the AIDS era. That's the kind of hate mail that he got in the Ebola era. But in this era, in response to our most recent infectious disease threat, in the context of the Trump movement on the American political right.
Okay, now keep in mind, Trump has promised to cut the corporate tax rate. CEOs like corporate tax cuts, and they have looked the other way many times before because of those tax cuts. But it sounds like they're having a harder time seeing past his unhinged behavior, and that does say something. And for his part, Trump isn't exactly doing anything to reassure people about his own cognitive abilities.
Now, the torrent of hate and threat is of a different order and a different magnitude.
It needs to be dealt with. The criminal gang leaders, the big heads of the central banks, the Pfizer head, Fauci, all of them that lied to Trump, we know, created the disinfo, already had the vaccine ready years before they released the virus.
Apparently, Trump has narrowed down his list of potential running mates to about 8 names. And here's what they had to say about the possibility of being Trump's VP. First up, Senator J.D. Vance said, I'm honored to be considered and would love to be Trump's vice president. And this guy said, run. Run while you still can. Run and do not look back.
Just last night, Trump forgot that his own former doctor's name is actually Ronnie Jackson.
I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Dr. Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson?
Congressman, I just wanted to ask you about the CEOs, because Andrew Ross Sorkin, who does an extensive amount of reporting, these CEOs have looked the other way frequently when it comes to Trump's behavior because of tax cuts and other things.
They all need to go to prison for the rest of their lives. It is the right thing to do that they be executed. I'm not a wimp. I will volunteer. I think it should be public. I will pull the lever. I will say that. I don't have a bloodlust, but I don't want people to do work I wouldn't do.
Like that. It seems to me it's like something that they are concerned about his unhinged behavior. I mean, what did you make of that reporting?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like there had been a trend of our American oligarchs getting behind Donald Trump because he likes to make a deal and everything's transactional and quid pro quo. But to get in a room with him and to listen to him speak is to see how deranged and outlandish his speculations are right now.
In Dr. Fauci's new book, he tells the story of his decades in public service, serving 7 different presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan, helping lead the response not only to HIV and AIDS domestically and around the globe, but also to Ebola and also Zika and also SARS and also even the anthrax attacks after 9/11. It's a 450-page book.
In addition to everything else that he, stands for, I mean, for him, government is just a money-making opportunity for him and his family, and he converted the presidency into an instrument of private self-enrichment, and that is dramatically opposed to what Joe Biden's all about. The government has got to be an instrument for the common good and the public interest for everybody, so the stakes are very clear in the U.S.
During the same interview, Trump said Melania is doing fine, but that this hush money trial has been very hard on her. Man, you know Melania's boiling, because whenever your spouse says, I'm fine, they're most definitely not fine. He said, no, I'm fine. Let's have fun, okay? Let's go. I'm fine. You guys, if you want to show Melania your support, send her a message on any of the 5 dating apps that she just joined.
It comes out tomorrow. As I mentioned, it is fascinating. Every new crisis is a detective story and a science thriller and a political potboiler all rolled into one. But the last 100 pages or so are about the COVID crisis and also about trying to handle the COVID crisis under the most recent Republican president, under Donald Trump.
But Trump's staying positive. He was like, every marriage goes through that phase where one of you sleeps with a porn star, then gets busted, trying to cover it up as a business expense. We've all been there. We've all been there.
I have a motion. I would move pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11 that the committee issue a subpoena to Jared Kushner to compel testimony related to the $2 billion collected from Saudi Arabia after his service within the White House.
Second. Raskin brought Trump's business transactions to the floor on several occasions to highlight the sheer irony of his colleagues outraged over a loan between brothers. Meanwhile, their very cult leader leveraged his position for financial gain.
Meanwhile, at the end of a White House press conference, a reporter asked President Biden about Trump blaming him for being convicted. And take a look at Biden's reaction.
President, can you tell us, sir, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir?
Foreign influence on a president is clearly a serious threat. And the evidence is clear, as our ranking member mentioned. We have actually evidence that China funneled cash to Donald Trump through his businesses while he was president. That is illegal and it threatens national security.
And even though that part of Dr. Fauci's career in public service is over, he retired in 2022 after serving as President Biden's chief medical advisor. Even though he is now out of public service after all of these decades, the Trump movement and its members in Congress and its supporters in the media are still going after Dr. Fauci as aggressively as ever, if not more so, even 2 years after he left government.
The Trump International Hotel, more stays at the hotel in Vegas. Trump Tower, over $5.5 million. The People's Republic of China, including state-owned enterprises, made unconstitutional payments in excess of $5.5 to the Trump Organization. And those millions into Donald Trump's pockets are just a small sample of the total payments we receive.
Because he epitomizes one of the things they are trying to destroy. One of the things that they need to destroy in their revolutionary war against the American system of government. It is not that they disagree with him. It is not that they misunderstand. It is that he represents expertise.
If Trump thinks it's politically advantageous to make an alliance with the National Rifle Association, the Supreme Court's going to do it. We saw it in the bump stock opinion, which basically overthrew the wisdom of the ATF, the executive branch of government, even when Trump was there and president, and said, oh no, a bump stock added to a semi-automatic weapon cannot be treated as a machine gun.
1.2 million Americans have died from COVID. Dr. Fauci's book explains the government's response, the challenge of dealing with a literally novel coronavirus, something new, learning as we go. He also tells the story of trying to build a government response with a president who literally did not understand what was going on in some very fundamental ways.
Because that's the NRA line. Now, we're going to go back and try to make this happen legislatively. That Vegas massacre took the lives of 58 people. There are 500 people wounded and still suffering from that day. I can't imagine what it's like for them to be watching this on TV with the Supreme Court making a mockery out of that.
What he's facing now is a political movement that cannot abide public health expertise at all, because it cannot abide expertise at all, because that competes with the truths that are spouted from the head of the leader. It is a movement that cannot abide authority and expertise from anyone other than their leader. And they answer any such competition for him with menace.
Congress has a ban on outside employment, and as AOC was saying, we have a $50 gift ban, so none of us goes anywhere near doing that.
Oh, you don't do $500,000 vacations?
Well, I mean, that's the comical thing. I mean, members of Congress don't even understand that. Under what circumstances would a Supreme Court justice be accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in foreign travel or paid tuition for family members or a recreational vehicle, motor stagecoach?
Former President Trump's campaign has officially started vetting a short list of potential running mates. Good luck. It's like signing up to be the babysitter in The Exorcist. Yeah. The chance to be Trump's VP right now, people are like, what should I wear to my interview? Antlers or bigger antlers? Yeah, they're vetting a short list of candidates. Yeah, you got to appreciate the irony of a convicted felon running a background check.
It's just outlandish for us to contemplate. I mean, that's like a jailable offense for people over here. And it's just like the normal business as usual at the Supreme Court that they're collecting millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars from their so-called friends.
We track what many experts see as the most incriminating day of insurrection testimony against Donald Trump. Here is what that same White House aide that we've been covering discussed about the top lawyer in the Trump White House. The White House counsel said about concerns about crimes being committed if they went ahead and marched on the Capitol with the president.
And so we need to clean that up. And that's why, we said we're going to start with something simple that the whole country will be able to understand immediately and intuitively. We want a $50 gift ban for U.S. Supreme Court justices. They make $300,000 a year, pay for your own lunch, and pay for your own vacation.
Listen to this. One source said that Trump's VP pick could be influenced by the fact that he likes people who are rich and have hot wives. Well, at least he's taking this seriously. That's not so. He really means it. Those are the only two questions on the form. Look, are you rich? How hot is your wife? Anyway, don't be surprised when you hear, please welcome my new VP, Jelly Roll.
In the days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count.
Crimes, obstructing justice, defrauding the electoral count before the 6th. That's not a portrait of a riot that got out of control or lawful advocacy of an election. It is a portrait on the inside of the White House among Trump loyalists. They knew crimes were in the works. They were worried about crimes on the 6th.
The simple fact that the former president continues to lie about the last election, that he did whatever he could on that day to block the peaceful transfer of power, is absolutely unprecedented in all of our history.
As a matter of presidential temperament, is that the guy you want to have behind as the commander-in-chief, sitting in the Oval Office, a guy who, when he's frustrated, when he's blowing off steam, again to use Barr's formulation, is someone whose way in which he exercises his frustration is to casually talk about having people who work for him shot, executed in some way. Well, I don't know if that's by hanging or by a guillotine or by the firing squad.
A couple things. He's fading fast. He's a proven loser. He cost us the House in 18. He cost us the White House in 20. He cost us the Senate again and again. And I think we all know that. And I think we're moving past Trump. I really think that's the case. I can't imagine him getting the nomination, frankly. And I don't mean this because I don't want him to get the nomination. I just don't think he will as an analytical point. The thing that I take solace in with all the machinations you saw last week, most of that wasn't personal. Most of that was around fiscal responsibility. Most of that was about a concern about spending, inflation, and debt.
We've all seen Trump lie endlessly about the results of the 2020 election at his rallies and of course on Fox News, where he's given endless oxygen to spew such disinformation. But what about across the stage from the man who he lost to regarding the free and fair election that several of his very own appointed judges tossed any and every case that dared to claim that it was stolen? Because this will lay bare the blatant disparity between both.
Apparently, when the chef at Mar-a-Lago asked what kind of cake he wanted, Trump said, the kind with the file baked into it. Get out of here, boys.